Now, to quickly explain the two, a freelance virtual assistant is you are basically on your own, you're a freelancer, you're working one-on-one with the client, versus if you are an agency virtual assistant, you probably have a client being given to you. Hey there, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now, my goal is that at this video is to walk you through the expectations versus reality of being a freelance virtual assistant versus being an agency virtual assistant. Now, if this is your first time on my channel, my name is Lacaba. I've been working from home since I was 15 years old and now run my own outsourcing agency here in the Philippines, and I post videos every Sunday and Thursday on how to work from home and how to have an online business. So make sure to hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of my videos. Now, this is a question that I've actually already answered on my TikTok, and if you guys still haven't yet, make sure to follow me on there. But basically, this is a topic that not a lot of people think about or know about when it comes to being a virtual assistant, is that there's actually kind of two different ways to become a virtual assistant, which is one is being a freelancer virtual assistant, which is the route that people usually go into, or the other side, which is what I have, is the agency virtual assistant. Now, to quickly explain the two, a freelance virtual assistant is you are basically on your own, you're a freelancer, you're working one-on-one with the client, versus if you are an agency virtual assistant, you probably have a client being given to you and you work under a corporation. So that's kind of the main difference between the two. Now, I'm going to go through the expectations versus reality of both. So as you are trying to pick, okay, do I want to be a freelance or an agency virtual assistant, which one is actually a better fit for me? Because there's not actually any right or wrong answer to both. When it comes to your virtual assistant journey, you can choose one or the other. You don't have to be both, of course, but they do have their advantages and disadvantages. Now, I'll go through the usual route first, to be a freelance virtual assistant. Now, the first usual expectation when it comes to getting started as a freelance virtual assistant is you get a higher pay raise. Now, this one honestly really depends on you. You can find clients who can afford to be able to pay you at a higher rate. You can also find clients locally here, and they will just pay you kind of the normal wage that we have in the Philippines anyway. So that's one of the biggest things about being a freelance virtual assistant, is you are in charge of how much you get paid, and you can't really blame anyone else if you're not being paid that much. So that's the biggest thing about basically being a business owner, because that's what you essentially become when you're a freelance virtual assistant, is that you become your own business owner, you become your own boss. You have to manage yourself. So when it comes to pricing and getting paid, yes, you can get paid higher, but it's not a guarantee just because you're going into it. It still has to be coming from you. The next expectation versus reality when it comes to being a freelance virtual assistant is that you have the ability to choose whoever client that you can. And again, usually that is the case. You can choose the clients that you work with based on probably the things that you like, the things that you enjoy doing. So for example, for me, if I was going to be starting as a virtual assistant all over again, I would probably work with fiction authors, just because I know more about that world anyway. That's something I love, and I love reading books. So that's where I get started. However, when you're doing this freelance, that also means that you are responsible for getting the clients, for doing the reach out, for finding them on Facebook groups maybe, or LinkedIn. I have a whole video on where to find clients online that you guys can check out. But basically, when you are the freelance virtual assistant, you are kind of responsible in making sure that you're also taking care of your clients, not just finding them. So it could be chasing your clients and making sure that they get paid. It could also be making sure that you deliver in the right way when it comes to working with your client. And that's a little bit similar with being an agency virtual assistant anyway, but you just have more responsibility as the freelance virtual assistant to be able to deliver yourself. The next expectation when you're a freelance virtual assistant is you just have a more flexibility in schedule, literally working anywhere. And in most days, yes, that is true. You do have the flexibility to be able to work whenever you want, wherever you want, even as long as you have internet. On the flip side of that reality, though, is there will be times where a client will ask you for different meetings throughout your day, or you'll have to be able to be up earlier or up later just to be able to meet with your client. And that is one reality of that, is you do have to keep in mind that yes, you're on your own time, but you still probably have to do some meetings here and there. So for example, for me as the agency owner, I know that I do have the flexibility to do different things throughout my day, but I still have scheduled meetings and things that I need to get done at a certain time, just like any other work that you have to do. And then the biggest thing that usually people expect when you are a freelance virtual assistant is that you do own a business. You do become a business owner. Like I said earlier, you do become an entrepreneur because you are offering services to a certain client or to a certain number of people. And in reality, that is freaking awesome. You get to get so much from the world and get to learn more about business, about entrepreneurship. You get to learn about leadership, even maybe if you start thinking of hiring other people yourself and then becoming an agency owner, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But basically what I mean by this is you are able to build something. But on the flip side of that, the reality is then you also have to be responsible about a lot of things that usually you won't have to think about if you were just an employee, which is one, taking care of the overhead, two, taking care of like things like taxes, social security, your own health insurance. You also have to keep in mind things about your tools and your equipment and paying for your own training, because again, you are your own business owner. You're kind of your own boss. So you have to kind of think about a lot of the things that a boss or an entrepreneur would think about. And another thing about being a freelance virtual assistant is it does get a little bit lonely because you don't have a team backup. Unless you join different groups or mastermind groups, for example, on Facebook, where you get to meet other virtual assistants, it kind of is that you are a little bit on your own. You have to figure a lot of things on your own. So that's one of the advantages now flipping over to being an agency virtual assistant, that you do have the advantage of having the other virtual assistants in the company to help back you up, give you ideas, give you feedback. And that is a regular thing to kind of expect, is you kind of are automatically getting that support and backup depending on how the company has structured it, that you have teammates, you have people that even if you're working with different clients, kind of like how we have it in 2XU, you kind of still have that autonomy at the same time of being able to work on your own while having that backup. So that's one of the fun things about being an agency virtual assistant, as I've also heard from a lot of our own assistants, is that they do have people who can give them that perspective, give them feedback. They can ask questions if they're too shy maybe to ask their own client, and they kind of have this just sense of community of people that they can talk to whenever they need to talk to someone. Now, other expectation versus reality when it comes to being an agency virtual assistant is you do tend to just have a little bit more security. Now, what I mean by this is you kind of have to not worry about the stuff that you have to worry if you're running your own virtual assistant business. You don't have to think about the overhead. You don't have to think about other costs. You kind of just have to really focus on the work that you do and, of course, your pay. And usually when it comes to being an agency virtual assistant, if a client leaves and it's not directly correlated to you, you actually get to keep your job as that agency tries to find you another client to work with. So that is another thing that's eliminated from you being a freelance virtual assistant, is as an agency virtual assistant, you are provided the clients. They are the ones looking out for the clients to be able to pair up with you and your skills. That's another thing that you can expect from being an agency virtual assistant, is you don't have to find and look for the client yourself. Another thing that you can expect as an agency virtual assistant is you are provided the training and sometimes even the tools to be able to get the work done. Now, when you're working with an agency, you kind of have to really represent them when you are working. So they, of course, they want to show up in the best way with their clients. So the ways that they do that is giving you training, giving you good equipment, online tools that you can use to be productive, giving you feedback and coaching. So that's one of the things that you can expect from that. On the flip side of that, though, you do have to be accountable to both the client and the agency. You might have to take care of reports, sending out reports to your client and then sending out a different report to the agency that you work with. So it's a little bit more finicky, a little bit more picky. There might be a little bit more structure that you have to follow to make sure that things are running smoothly on both sides. And of course, another thing that you should probably expect is you don't have control on your pay as much as you do if you were a freelance virtual assistant, because they probably have a pricing structure that they look at based on like experience, the work that you're doing, the responsibilities that you have with your client, that they follow and make sure that they're also taking care of the overhead costs that, again, you don't have to think about if you're an agency VA. So you do have to kind of go to them to ask for a raise, to ask for compensation maybe, versus if you were the one doing the budgeting yourself and figuring it out how much you want to pay yourself. Now, again, there's not really any right or wrong answer to this. This really depends on the kind of person that you are. Even if you don't have any experience at all, I would recommend that you do freelance or agency virtual assistant, again, depending on where you are at. The reality is both have their pros and cons, both have their reasons to be the way that they are. It's now just up to you for you to choose which side you want to be on. Now, if you you do want to get started as an agency virtual assistant and you're from Cebu, we are hiring right now inside of my company. So just go to 2x2.com/hiring for more details on that. And if you guys want to become a freelance virtual assistant yourself, check out all of the other videos that I have on this channel. And if you guys like this video, of course, make sure to hit that thumbs up button right there, or comment whatever pros and cons do you think that I might have missed about being a freelance virtual assistant versus being an agency virtual assistant. And if you guys still haven't yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any videos every Sunday and Thursday. You guys can check out those two playlists right here and the latest video right here. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Remember that small steps matters, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!